The college is all about partnerships. I think many of you know the kinds of partnerships that we forged. And it's so critically important, whether it's with our elected officials, with the NAACP, et cetera. It's what makes the college strong. And tonight we have a great example of a partnership. We have our own Department of Institutional Equity and Diversity, working with the Charles County NAACP, and the Nu Zeta Omega chapter of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Society, sorority, all working together to make sure that we can have this program this evening. And tonight we're going to remember and honor the rich legacy of a very, very special American, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I think we all know that as a minister and social activist, Dr. King inspired hundreds and hundreds of thousands, some would say millions of people in the United States and across the world into actions against racism, against poverty, and suing for peace. And he still inspires us to this day, and for many, many years in the future. All of us are touched by his legacy. Now, I study history, many of you may know that, and I know the importance of not repeating history and remembering history, but also how important it is to convey history to our young people. And that's why this is also why this evening is so exciting to me, because to see so many young people here in the audience and to hear more about the legacy of our country. The reality, and I think we all know this, that Dr. King's work is not done. We need to continue the fight. We need to continue moving forward. And it's going to be our young people that are going to continue to make this society that much better. So, welcome this evening. I'm going to introduce a very special person, Makiba Clay, who is our Executive Director of Institutional Equity and Diversity, and she's going to introduce the rest of the program. So welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. And welcome to the program this evening. I am very pleased to see a full house for this very exciting program. Brad, thank you so much for your remarks. They were lovely. And as you mentioned, it is the youth among all of us, we are all young people who will carry on the work of Dr. Martin Luther King, we hope. It is my pleasure and an honor to introduce our speaker this evening. Before I do so, I would like to thank our co-sponsors. As Brad said, we really do value the partnerships that we build with members of civic and social organizations, members of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Charles County branch of the NAACP. And I really would be remiss if I did not acknowledge one of our very own professors, Barbara Link. Will you please stand? She is a professor of language and literature, and Barbara is, in fact, the person who made the introduction to us, Ms. King. So can we give Barbara a hand for helping us get you and getting you to say yes to CSM. So this evening we will have a conversation with Ms. King, followed by a Q&A with our members of our audience, and then there will be some tributes that follow. There are a number of special guests in the audience who we'll recognize at the end when they do the tributes. Ms. Willie King. She's retired in 2004 after 6 years as a contractor for the U.S. Office of Compliance for Capitol Hill. She worked for 32 years also as a U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and served as a financial manager for 11 years. Prior to becoming the financial manager for the commission, she served as an accounting officer. Previous assignments included accounting, administrative, and secretarial duties. What we are most excited to hear from her tonight is the work that she did with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference under the leadership of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Ms. King, who is no relation to Dr. King, spent 4 years working under his leadership between 1962 and 1966 as a member of his executive staff. She performed a number of administrative duties and tasks, including traveling with Dr. King. While in Birmingham, while Dr. King during the direct action protest movement, she transcribed a famous letter, which we now know as the letter from Birmingham Jail, which is enclosed in your program this evening. We hope that you will take an opportunity to read this thought-provoking, inspiring letter that Dr. King toiled over as he sat in that Birmingham jail, especially to our young people who are here from the Ladies and Gentlemen's Village of St. Mary's County. Ms. King is a member of the Montgomery Hills Baptist Church in Silver Spring, Maryland. She's a member of a board of deacons, and she's a teacher with the Agape Sunday School class. Her speaking engagements have been numerous. She's traveled far and wide to deliver addresses speaking about the rich legacy and history of Dr. Martin Luther King. And this evening, we too have the privilege and honor of sitting at the feet of a witness to history. Will you please join me?
I'm going to flip my script a little bit. Because of the generosity of this group and because you've been so kind, you really take me back 50 or 51 years ago when I was very, very active in the movement. And I'm going to do that by singing a little bit for you. I'm not a singer, but it just kind of puts me in the mood of what we were doing back then. So it's gonna go like this. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah. That is what we used to sing during those horrible days in the South in the movement. Good evening again. My name is Willie King, and I want to thank you, first of all, for giving me the opportunity to share some of my personal work experiences with the late Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Now, how did I become a member of Dr. King's staff? How did I get to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference? 51 years ago, 13 co-workers, including myself, walked off of our job at Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta. The reason we walked off of our job is one of my co-workers had a heart attack. He ran the dish machine there. Although this was a hospital, not a single nurse nor a doctor would go near Pop. He had to wait on the cold loading dock until the public hospital sent an ambulance from Grady Memorial downtown out to Piedmont to pick him up. Now, I didn't know anything about civil rights, didn't care anything about civil rights because I thought I had it going on, but I knew something was wrong. So when we left our job, all 13 people, well, 12 of them, got new jobs right away. I was having a very difficult time finding a job. I would walk the streets of Atlanta, past restaurants, and there would be signs displayed that said waitresses, hiring waitresses. I'd go in and apply for the job, only to be told we're not hiring. But the signs were still in the window. Then I said, okay, I'll clean tables. They said, you have too much education, you're too qualified for that. So I couldn't even get a job cleaning the tables in the restaurants. I knew something was wrong. And I decided at that point in time in my life that I would try and go back to school, which I hope a lot of you will do, and try to make something better out of my life. And maybe I thought education would get me a job. Now, I lived in a house where the landlord rented several of her extra bedrooms. And in that home was a woman by the name of Dorothy Cotton. Dorothy worked for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Dorothy asked me one day if I had been looking for a job and if I could type and take shorthand. There were only a few jobs that you could get as a minority and at that time. So I said, sure. It didn't matter how much education you had or anything else. Type or take shorthand, and you could get a job as a secretary. I took the typing test and the shorthand test, and I passed it, despite the fact that the man, Gould Maynard, that interviewed me had a very thick accent. He was out of New York and one of the islands. It was difficult for me to understand him, but he spoke so slowly that I could pick up what he was saying. So that was my beginning at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I got the job, and very shortly thereafter, I realized I was working for Martin Luther King Jr. I didn't know anything about him, didn't have any connections or any of that kind of thing. It was just by God's grace that I was given that job. Dr. King was very warm, very pleasant. He welcomed me to the organization, and he said he looked forward to working with me, and I thought I was on cloud 9. You know, I really could not believe this was happening. I pinched myself. Now, I started to travel with Dr. King in March of 1962, which was only about a month after I started to work there. I had never been out of the state of Georgia, and our first board meeting that I went to was in Tennessee. I stayed, it was Chattanooga, and I stayed at the Lorraine Segregated Hotel, okay, because that was the only place that we could stay in that area. We had mass meetings in the state of Tennessee, but the only place that we could meet were in the churches, because there was nothing else available where a large number of minorities could meet. I served, as I said earlier to some people, on Dr. King's executive staff for 4 years as a secretary. My work consisted of clerical and administrative duties. There were so many phone calls for Dr. King. You would have the President of the United States, the Attorney General, the press, the community leaders, anybody that you, and then the kooks. Everybody was calling Dr. King. And so, all of his calls had to be handled, though, with the utmost of care, and in a lot of cases confidentially, because of the nature of what he was doing. The work was challenging, but rewarding, because you always felt deep in your heart that you were working for a worthwhile cause. Dr. King was not a person who commanded a lot from you, but being around him and working closely with him made you want to give your very best, made you want to work as hard as you could to get the work done. I saw firsthand Dr. King's commitment to resolving America's chief social dilemma, racial injustice. Now, who was Martin Luther King? 84 years ago, on January 15, 1929, Mrs. Alberta Williams King and her husband, Dr. Michael King, remember I said Dr. Michael King, were blessed with a son. Young Michael was born. Their son's birth was actually recorded as Michael, and I'm told that they never legalized the name change. But be that as it may, that's what sticks in our memory, Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King Sr., as he was being called at this point, had been inspired by, some people refer to him as a reformer, Martin Luther. And he was so impressed that when he came back to his church, he said to his congregation, "From now on, I'm to be referred to as Martin Luther King and my son as Martin Luther King Jr." Maybe Daddy King, as he was prophetically and very fondly referred to, saw that his 6-year-old son had a dream, would have a dream, and would be true to that dream. Now, Dr. King was usually a very upbeat person. He loved playing baseball, he had a great sense of humor, and he liked to swim. One night when we were sitting at the pool where the staff went on Tuesday nights, Dr. King was looking at his children swimming around there, and he said, you know, I would really like to see my children grow up. I would really like to see what their children would be like. But then he remained upbeat, and then he looked me straight in the eye and said, but I know that's not going to happen because I have to do God's will. That, to me, was a very sad point in my life, but then he went on to say, longevity is great, but we're all not going to enjoy longevity. So here was a man that was not at all afraid of dying for what he believed in. He appeared to have difficulty with people who did not understand the need for change. There was no realization that the Negro had been most patient of all people. They were tired at this point of hearing, be patient. Now was the time for them to enjoy the rights that they were entitled to as American citizens. He sometimes spoke of the September 20th, 1958 incident when Mrs. Izola Curry, a black woman in Harlem, stabbed him in the chest while he was signing an autograph in his book, Stride Toward Freedom. Now, this book described the Montgomery bus boycott and chronicled the 50,000 Negroes who took to heart the principles of nonviolence, who learned to fight for their rights with the weapon of love. And with those principles, they acquired a new estimate of their own human worth. Mrs. Curry disagreed with Dr. King's vision. She evidently felt that he should remain more patient. Now, she was not alone. There were a whole lot, and I said it just like I meant it, a whole lot of Negroes who felt that Dr. King should be more patient. And you know something? We're not a long way from that today, okay? I have to be truthful to you. Now, let's look at why Dr. King was in Birmingham in the first place and why he was in jail. He was in Birmingham and other areas of the South at the invitation of the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth and the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Dr. King had a tie to the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights because it was an affiliate organization to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. We, Dr. King, 6 members of his staff and myself, did a people-to-people tour of the state of Alabama in December of 1962. Now, this tour was to get a first-hand look at the racial problems that plagued Alabama. Birmingham had tremendous racial problems. It was considered by civil rights leaders to be the ultimate example of evil. There was more unsolved bombings of Negro homes and churches in Birmingham than any other city in the nation. The Negro leaders had sought to negotiate with the city leaders in Alabama to no avail. They refused to engage in good faith negotiations. And the chief of police there, as you all know, Bull Connor, was the epitome of segregation himself. And he often bragged that in order to control the demonstrators, all he needed was a few police officers and a dog. Now, Dr. King's presence and jailing in Alabama brought much press coverage to the racial segregation in the South. Many civil rights followers and supporters from around the country joined the movement efforts and segregation efforts after seeing the fire hoses and the vicious dogs. Dr. King again was in jail in Birmingham because he decided to disobey a court-ordered injunction to stop marching. He felt the injunction was unjust and unconstitutional. It was just another tactic to continue discriminating against minorities. On Good Friday, April 12, 1963, Dr. King and Reverend Abernathy led a group of protesters in a nonviolent demonstration for peace and racial equality. He was prepared to die, if necessary, to bring an end to racism in the South. His plan was to stay in jail as long as it took for changes to be made. His needs and the needs of the oppressed were the most important concerns of Dr. King. When he went to jail, he was aware that the Southern Christian Leadership Conference did not have sufficient funds for his bail, but the success of the movement and the people in Birmingham caused him to go to jail anyway. Now, while Dr. King was in jail, he learned of a published statement by a group of 8 white clergymen in Birmingham. Again, they stated that Dr. King's actions were unwise and untimely. Dr. King felt that waiting for an end to segregation was not an option. The time to wait was long past. Although the 8 ministers criticized Dr. King's work, he was civil as usual in his response. He opened with, "My dear fellow clergymen." Then he explained that it was unusual for him to take time out from his busy schedule to answer criticisms of his work. However, because Dr. King felt that these 8 ministers were men of genuine goodwill and that their criticisms were sincere, he gave them an answer. The Birmingham Jail letter was created. These very fingers typed that letter, okay? I transcribed, with the help of my boss, Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, that letter, which was written on the edges of newspapers, napkins, toilet paper, and whatever else Dr. King could find to write on. Because he was told by the jailers, this is not a library, and you ain't gonna write in here. So he had to do it undercover. A few words now about that Birmingham Jail letter. Dr. King explained to the ministers his reason for being in Birmingham. Racism was there. He was not there as an outsider leading demonstrations. He was there again in response to a call from the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. And I told you that the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights was an affiliated organization to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Dr. King was in Birmingham because of injustice. He stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. He told the ministers that he could not sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about the injustices in Birmingham. The demonstrations, I agree, were unfortunate, but attention had to be brought to the forefront in order to deal with the underlying causes of racism. Direct action was the last effort, for solving the problems of racism. Negotiations had failed to change any kinds of conditions in Birmingham and in the South. Tensions were high on both sides. But despite those high tensions, Dr. King insisted that all of the protests had to be nonviolent. The demonstrators, believe it or not, had to sign a pledge card. And I'm just going to read you a few of the items that were on that pledge card. Meditate daily on the teachings and life of Jesus. Walk and talk in the manner of love, for God is love. Now, remember, you're dealing with a Baptist minister first and a civil rights leader secondly, so you're going to have Dr. King's religious background coming out here. Pray daily to be used by God in order that all people might be free. Observe with both friend and foe the ordinary rules of courtesy. How we need to do that today. Sacrifice personal wishes in order that all people might be free. Seek to perform regular service for others and refrain from violence of fist, tongue, or heart. Now let's take another look at the minister's comments that the demonstrations were unwise and untimely. Dr. King said that the white leadership in Birmingham were dedicated to preserving segregation, and only pressure from the civil rights activities would cause them to see the hopelessness of resistance to change. He felt that civil rights leaders had not achieved anything without pressure on the white power structure, who seldom gave up privileges voluntarily. It was hoped that the white ministers could understand the legitimate impatience of most Black Americans. I personally experienced criticism from Blacks who were afraid that Dr. King's activities could jeopardize their jobs or even their lives. The criticizers remind us of the Israelites when Moses led them out of Egypt into the Promised Land. They said that Moses should have left them in Egypt rather than to bring them out of the wilderness and be killed by Pharaoh and his army. Now you know the story about the parting of the sea and Pharaoh and his army drowning. Despite the criticisms, we are still celebrating Dr. King's achievements. We probably could not find an American speech that has been cited more often or listened to by more people than Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream." There are some 125 schools and 770 streets named after Dr. King. Moses and Martin succeeded in spite of the people who did not share their vision. Dr. King gave this nation a vision. The vision that Dr. King gave this country and the world came to full flower of images provided in the "I Have a Dream" speech, one of the greatest orations in American history. The "I Have a Dream" speech was preceded in speeches and books like Stride Toward Freedom, Why We Can't Wait, and the Birmingham Jail letter. Dr. King articulated his vision clearly, directly, and boldly by calling for an America free of racism, hatred, and discrimination. An America based on the moral values of justice, law, and equality, brotherhood, and human dignity for all. It was a vision emanating from our most sacred religious and political institutions. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, let freedom ring. On August 28, 1963, the dream was delivered to 250,000 people attending a rally in the District of Columbia. Dr. King dreamed of a nation living up to the true meanings of its creed, that all people are created equal, of a nation free of oppression, and that all people would be free. He dreamed of a society where the FBI and other law enforcement officials would no longer be required to investigate racism and hate crimes. Dr. King dreamed that his strong faith in Jesus Christ would sustain him in those hard times. He coined the phrase that stated, "With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. We will be able to work together and to pray together." He dreamed of a day where all of God's children would be able to sing together with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. He dreamed of a nation that would educate all of its citizens, realizing that through education, we were seeking to change attitudes and hearts. Education has not fulfilled its purpose. Through legislation and court orders, We were seeking to regulate behavior and morals. Morals cannot be legislated. There comes a time when a moral person cannot obey an unjust law. We still have work to be done. We all have dreamed of a nation built on the principles of faith and religion. We say, in God we trust. There is still so much frustration in our nation. We have relied on gods rather than on God. We have relied on the God of science, only to find that it has given us the atomic bomb, producing fears and anxieties that science will never be able to mitigate. We have worshiped the God of pleasure, only to discover that thrills play out and sensations are short-lived. We have bowed before the God of money, only to learn that there are such things as love and friendship that money cannot buy. These transitory gods are not able to save or bring happiness to the human heart. Dr. King not only spoke, he acted on his conviction. He helped create a movement of purpose, meaning, and sacrifice that aroused this nation. The dream is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I say this because the dream is rooted in a strong belief that the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the prophet is the God of us all, that all people are created in God's image and are therefore created equal. I remind you that we must be moral people. Today, we tolerate entirely too much. We tolerate poverty, infidelity, you name it, and we have little regard for what is right and what is wrong. Now, I say that knowing that there's some good in the best of us and some evil in the worst of us. We as a nation are called upon today to celebrate but carry forward Dr. King's legacy and his dream. We have a great opportunity to help the nation achieve its greatest possibilities. We play a vital role in helping people maintain dignity and live in a just nation. We must remember that we carry the torch for those like Dr. King who sacrificed all for the values and principles that we hold dear and for opportunity. We can stamp out injustice, help the less fortunate, put an end to poverty, and respect life and rights of others. In the 90s and 20th century, we saw some major changes in the employment sector, but there is still work to be done. We saw much progress, but we need to eliminate the high unemployment rate. We saw changes in the living conditions of the poor, but there's work to be done to improve our sluggish housing market. We still see our youth consumed by drugs and crimes, violent crimes. We must do something. Rosa Parks on the bus and the students at the lunch counters in the South sat down as a way of standing up. What will we do? It is up to us to remember Dr. King and keep the dream alive. We can save our young people. We can have better living conditions for the poor, and we can make our streets safe again. What we, people like you and I, do will have a profound impact on whether we dream or whether we have a nightmare. Thank you for letting me share Dr. King with you. Thank you so very much. You've been so kind.
And thank you again, Ms. King. I really feel that the atmosphere is changing in here. It feels the warmth that you've brought, the hope that you've given us, the inspiration and encouragement. I'm just overwhelmed and very pleased to be here. One of the things that just came up from some of the young people was ways to have conversations, ways to get people on board with your vision of change and how to have difficult conversations. We are very excited because we just received funding hot off the press not long ago from the county commissioners who are here tonight for a diversity institute, which we're hoping will make a big impact in the community. Members of the community have spoken, and they said we want to have a continued dialogue around issues of race, politics, social identity, social class, etc. And we crafted a proposal that the commissioners approved and funded, and we're pleased that initiative will be launching. It's already launched, and we will have a number of programs through the K-12 system, interfaith dialogues, in the library system, and we're really hoping that all of you, as well as your neighbors, your members of the synagogues and mosques and churches that you belong to, will jump on board and be a part of this continued conversation so that we can all make a difference. Okay? At this point, we're winding down our program. There are a number of tributes that folks would like to make to Ms. King. So as you sip your water, I'd like you to join us back at the front of the house. I will acknowledge, I think everyone is here. We have a representative from the Office of the United States Representative Steny Hoyer's office, Muriel Stewart, if you could join me up here.
Good evening. Again, I'm Marielle Stewart. I'm one of the new constituent liaisons down in Congressman Hoyer's office right down the street in Waldorf. It is truly a pleasure to be here, and I know that he is sad that he couldn't attend, but he does send greetings, and I'd like to read them quickly. Dear Ms. King, it is our honor to welcome you to the College of Southern Maryland. We are thrilled that you are giving your time to share your experiences as the secretary to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The accomplishments of Dr. King hold a revered place in American history, yet behind every successful figure are those who work to build and sustain their legacies. Your work with Dr. King Jr. was instrumental in the creation and distribution of the letter from Birmingham Jail. Your visit to La Plata campus is a welcome opportunity to learn not just about Dr. King, but also about your role in amplifying his message and in learning about what life was like during a critical period in our history. I thank you for your service in making our union a more perfect one and in your continued outreach to ensure that we may never forget the sacrifices and those who came before us in this permanent battle for a more equal nation. Thanking you again, and with kindest regards, I am Steny Hoyer. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. On behalf of the Maryland General Assembly, I'd like to ask Dr. Edith Patterson to join us. Dr. Patterson, a recent retiree of the College of Southern Maryland and also former Charles County Board Commissioners, is here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, or rather good evening. Earlier today, I was in Annapolis with the General Assembly, and this is from the Maryland General Assembly official citation. Please come closer. I'm not a contagion. I was in Birmingham, by the way, when I got this cold. Official citation. It's from the airplane. It's drainage from the airplane. You know that. Be it hereby known to all that sincerest congratulations are offered to Willie King in recognition of her tireless efforts in her role in the civil rights movement by transcribing the notes of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The Southern Maryland delegation appreciates her work for our community. Presented on this 27th day of February 2013 by the Charles County delegation, Senator Roy Dyson, Delegate Sally Jamison, House Chair, Senator Thomas McMiddleton, Delegate Peter Murphy, Delegate C.T. Wilson, and Delegate John Wood, Jr. This was prepared by the Chief of Staff to Delegate Wilson. Deborah Collins presented this for us. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Patterson. And I also want to thank Edith, especially for all of her help getting the word out, coordinating with many of the civic and social leaders here. Thank you so much for what you continue to do, even in retirement. Okay. Next, we have the members of the Charles County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner Deborah Davis and Commissioner Reuben Collins, who, as I mentioned earlier, were very instrumental in helping us forge the path for our Diversity Institute.
We do. Both Reuben and I are lawyers, and yes, we do both like to talk. What an awesome assembly of people to honor a great woman who did her part in the movement. And that's the message I want to send to you, and that's what I got from this, was that not everyone has to be in front.
Yes.
Everyone can make a contribution.
This is a celebration of a beautiful woman. And as my colleague stated, we talked about Dr. King this evening. But for me, this was an expression and an appreciation for those many people that toiled and that were directly a part of the struggle, but whose name you don't refer to during months like Black History Month. This is a celebration for a true hero, someone who has made our lives better. And I am proud to be here on behalf of the Charles County Board of Commissioners to present to Ms. King this special recognition. I would like to just quickly refer to a very brief story that for me made me appreciate even more the work of Dr. King and those that were around him, like Ms. King, who were real people, real individuals that were a part of the struggle. And it was a discussion on the origins of the I Have a Dream speech. And it was a story presented by one of the attorneys for Dr. King, and he was there, he assisted him in actually preparing the speech. But what struck me about the story was much of the speech took a turn during the actual presentation in Washington that day. And a lot of it had to do with comments made by Mahalia Jackson. She was there at the time, and she was really rallying Dr. King on. She kept saying to him, "Remember the dream. Remember the dream, Martin." And it really stirred up in Martin a totally different direction of the speech. And so for me, that expresses just the human side of greatness. And that human side is reflected in individuals like Ms. King, and I just say, God bless you. Thank you so much for making our lives better. So on behalf of the County Commissioners of Charles County, I'd like to present to you this official citation. Be it hereby known to all that sincerest appreciation is offered to Willie King in recognition of your devotion to bettering the lives of others and remarkable advocacy for civil and human rights. The County Commissioners honor your dedication and commitment. It's presented on this 27th day of February 2013 by the County Commissioners of Charles County, Candace Quinn Kelly, yours truly, Ken Robinson, Deborah M. Davis, Esquire, and Bobby Rucci. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioners Davis and Collins, for being here tonight, but also for the work that you all do on a daily basis on our behalf as Charles County residents. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to ask the president of our Charles County branch of the NAACP, Ms. Janice Wilson, to join us here at the podium.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening. And on behalf of all of the members of the Charles County branch of the NAACP, I want to extend to Ms. King a warm Charles County welcome. Thank you for being here. Very inspiring. And what I'd like to do is read a resolution to Ms. King from the Charles County, Maryland NAACP branch number 7016, a tribute to Miss Willie King. Whereas Ms. Willie King, a graduate of Georgia State University, served as a key member of Southern Christian Leadership Conference in Atlanta for 4 years during the presidency of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and legal counsel of Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker. And whereas Ms. King played a pivotal role in the collection and transcription of letters spirited away from Dr. King while he was imprisoned in the Birmingham Jail. Notes not readily understood until later to provide a glimpse into the thinking of Dr. King, who saw the message as a means of conveying to the world that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality tied in a single garment of destiny. And whereas Ms. King spent the majority of her life committed to working to ensure the enforcement of federal laws that make it illegal to discriminate against a job applicant or employee because of a person's race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, or genetic information, as noted in her many years with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Now, therefore, the members of the Charles County branch of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, on this 27th day of February 2013, do sincerely offer our heartfelt thanks to you for your historic and unselfish acts that ultimately helped shape our American history, and for your life's work that is so closely aligned to the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Thank you again, Ms. King. I just have to say this. It touched my heart to hear Ms. King talk about peace and love. And I just want to challenge everyone in this room to show more peace. God knows we need it in this world we live in. And to show more love. I think we need more love in the world, don't you? Okay, so that's my challenge to you. Thank you.
And I know I said you were the last, but there's another person that I need to mention. Ms. Miriam Matthews-Clark, who is the president of the Nu Zeta Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, who will make our final presentation.
Oh, just keep going.
Thank you all for coming. I'd like to present a small token of appreciation on behalf of the officers and members of Nu Zeta Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. And if my sorors could please stand and be recognized also, this is our gift to you. Thank you.
Well, it's that time. We've come to the close of our program. We would be delighted if you would join us for the reception in the back, some light refreshments. We also have a sign-up sheet that will be out front for you to give us your contact information if you'd like to participate in many of the programs that we will be hosting this spring and onward. Please do provide your email, phone number, whatever way you'd like us to contact you, and we will definitely keep you in the loop, keep you engaged, involved, and empowered around these issues that intersect all identities, social issues, etc. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation and your engagement.